This is for my Black Boys Love Girlies. I am going to recommend some books that I've read that have two black male characters falling in love or in a relationship and dealing with love and romance and stuff like that. First up, my problematic fave, B-Boy Blues by James Earl Hardy. I love this book. When I read this book years ago, this was the first book with two black gay characters in it that I loved, or two men that were falling in love in the story. But not just that, it was also that one of the characters was more of a butch queen, effeminate. He was a little bit more in between the masculine and the feminine. And the other one, he was a little bit more masculine, a little bit more thugged out, a little bit more hood. He was a b-boy. And I just loved that dynamic because at that time I wanted that dynamic. And this book kind of encapsulated that because I felt like I related to Mitchell in that way. But then I think I read it a second time before that, and then when I read it last year, I tabbed it up a bunch. And as a matter of fact, I tabbed it up the second time. I think this was the second or third time I read it, and I tabbed it up a bunch of times and left post-it notes because it had some really good parts that were great, and then some of the parts was a little bit problematic for me. There was a little bit of fat phobia at the beginning, but it was also the 90s because everything was funny, because people said, y'all need to be able to take a joke. Well, I felt like there was a kind of hint of trans, drag, femphobia kind of thing going on in the story too. But it was just the times that it was written in, and it was not very conscious of how that kind of language is really shitty. But at the end of the day, it's a good book. I loved it. I used to love Raheem, and now it's like, baby, I don't know about Raheem no more, man. Raheem, he could kick rocks. That nigga's kind of raggedy for me a little bit. But I still love B-Boy Blues, and it is still one of my favorites to this day. And I still have to watch the movie. I'm going to watch the movie very soon. That movie has been in the works for years, and now that it's finally available, I need to finally watch it. Next up, another fave for me. I just reread this last year. Chulito. Baby, I love this book. I think he's Puerto Rican. His family's Puerto Rican. The author described him as Ovaltine colored. The author, Charles Rice Gonzalez, is Afro-Latino. It is a great coming-of-age story about a teenager who was 16, 17, 18. It's kind of also highly provocative. There was one scene that is very intense, and I was like, you are 17, what are you doing? This is not what you just supposed to be doing. But it's also the reality of how some kids grow up, how some teenagers experience life, and they experience some very intense experiences. Also, this book read very cinematic. It just had such a cinematic feel to it. The ending felt cinematic. I feel like this needs to become a movie, and a really good director needs to take this on. Somebody who writes a really good script, write this and make this into a movie. It felt like an Oscar-winning movie. I definitely would suggest reading this. Invisible Life by Lynn Harris. I read this when I was a teenager for the first time, and I enjoyed it. It was fine, but the subsequent books in the series, I love them a little bit more because his books feel like you're reading a soap opera. It feels like a soap opera. It just feels like a lot of drama, and that's my thing. I love a good soap opera, so it's like I loved it. I reread this a second time some years ago. I didn't love it as much because the sex scene, it faded to black immediately. I was a little disappointed by that. I feel like in this first book, a lot of it at the time was not appealing to me. But I need to reread this and read the rest of the books in the series because somebody gifted me their collection of Lynn Harris novels. So I'm gonna have to do a reread and binge all of the series because baby, it's good. It be some drama. John Basil character, Messy Boots. That is a messy boots man. But one book that I always remember from that series is Any Way the Wind Blows, because that was a high profile story where this woman, she was out to get revenge, which is so interesting because most of his books are like, they have a gay male lead or at least a men-loving men lead. And that book was led by a woman, and she was out for revenge against some people, against a man. And then there was a stage play involved, and it was good. I enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, when I read it, I don't even think I was expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. But I definitely need to do a reread of Invisible Life, and I do think it is a really good book to read. I feel like it is a good foundational black male text, a black boys love, for lack of a better term, but black male text that you should read. It's a good story. It's messy. She's messy boots. Another book I read, I think I read this back in 2021 or 2022, I think. I forgot exactly when this came out, but this is The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. This is a book set in the time of slavery, well, with two gay slaves or two gay enslaved black men falling in love with each other. This was a beautiful book. It was poetically written. It is a gorgeous book. I actually need to do a reread of it. It is fantastic. I love The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. This became an instant classic. It took this man 10 years to write this book, but he wrote a monumental classic. I really need to do a reread of this. It is good to have a novel written about two black men who were enslaved, who were gay, and falling in love. We've never had that. Well, have we never had that story before? Maybe we haven't, but I don't know about it. But this is the first time I've known about a story where two black men who were enslaved are gay and falling in love. So I would definitely suggest reading The Prophets. It does get a little intense because it is still the time of slavery. And I will not lie, because at the time when I read this, I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and then I read The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, and then I read this after. So at the time I was very, very, very upset about slavery, and I'm still very apprehensive about white people. And this book really topped it off. At this point, I'm still processing because, girl, slavery, colonialism, imperialism. But this is a really good book despite all of that. And it's so beautifully and interestingly told because there's all these different perspectives that are around this relationship. It's not just them talking about their relationship, but it's also all these other people's perspectives of how they're seeing these two enslaved black men's relationship on this plantation. Next up is Blood Debts by Terry J. Benton Walker. Although it is not primarily a black male story, it's a pair of twins, and one of them is a gay boy. He falls in love with this guy. That stuff happens. And that was a beautiful relationship. I love this book, Blood Debts by Terry J. Benton Walker, because it was like a soap opera for me. It reminded me of something like Vampire Diaries. It gave me a little bit of True Blood. It was good. I enjoyed this a lot. And I actually need to do a reread of this and read the second book, Blood Justice. And I'm looking forward because I think there's supposed to be a third book in this series. Plus, Terry J. Benton Walker is about to release, I think it's called The Dragon Prince. I forgot, but that's the black male romantasy. He is writing that. Not even he's writing that. He wrote it, and it's about to come out in November of 2026. I am looking forward to reading that. I am excited about that. When he announced that, I was like, bitch, I need that now. I need it now. So knowing that it's coming out, I am going to get that. I'm going to try to pre-order it because, baby, I need that. That's me. Speed, I need that. Give it to me, period. Next up, Blood at the Root by LaDarrion Williams. Although most of the story is not about a black male, a black gay character, or a black male relationship, there is a supporting side character male relationship happening in the story. It's a queer relationship, and I thought that was a cute relationship. I would have loved to have seen that explored more, because their story was kind of interesting, because one half of the relationship started off in a relationship with somebody else, and then all of a sudden that side of the relationship was with somebody else. No, that side of the relationship was with the now other side of the relationship, so they were now paired up, and I was just like, how did that happen? I would love to see a story about that. But overall, that was a cute relationship, and I did enjoy the book, and I hope LaDarrion Williams does write that black male story. I'm here for it. Next up is The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. This is a paranormal story where Jake Livingston is a medium that is haunted by a Jeffrey Dahmer-esque ghost that is trying to kill him while he falls in love with his high school crush. That was a cute part of the story, but at the same time, for me personally, I liked and didn't like this book because I know that Ryan Douglas is a poet. I think he put a lot of poetic writing into his prose, and I was not loving that because I was reading it and I felt like I was not seeing everything that he was trying to say in the story. It was abstract to me, or it just felt like stuff was happening all over the place because of how it was written, and I was not clear on it. But for the most part, it was still a great book, and I actually would love a follow-up, a sequel to the story, because it felt like at the ending of the book it was setting up even more lore and backstory and more of a larger world to the story. So I definitely suggest reading The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. And finally, I read A Necessary Chaos by Brent Lambert. It is a short one, but it is a action-packed story. It was really good. It's like this nice urban sci-fi fantasy in this alternate world. It's about like a rebel and a spy falling in love with each other. It's kind of like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but gay and black, but in this alternate sci-fi fantasy universe. And it was very action-packed, very gory. I did not fully love it. I felt like I needed more from it. I ain't gonna lie, I needed more smut from it. I needed more sex from it. I think there was a little bit more I needed from experiences with the characters and their relationship. But for the most part, it is still a satisfying story and is a very interesting story in an interesting world. So I definitely suggest this as a book to read. These are all the books that I've read that I recommend that you read that are black male stories. And I hope you find something that you like. If I'm able to link where you can buy the books, I'll link them so you can click the link wherever it is to shop these books. I recommend these books for sure. And I'm going to need to do a reread of some of them. For the most part, if I didn't enjoy them all, I found things that I enjoyed in them, and the black male romance, it was still beautiful. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I am out this bitch like Fleek. Shout out to Peaches. Thank you, girl.